you know about me?
Hello you dirty potters, how are you today? Oh boy, it's time for another Glaze review! In today's episode, we're going to be reviewing Emerald Falls from the Amaco Potter's Choice line PC-47. Now, if you're new to the Glaze review playlist on my channel, we usually do a couple of things. We take a bottle of glaze from Amaco, so this way we test it for you on screen. We test it on some white clay, usually B-mix or porcelain. We test it on some brown clay, which I oscillate in between redstone and some other brown clays. And then we experiment a little bit. This way, before you buy a glaze off the shelf, you can kind of see what you're getting into. And I can say I've had some fun reviewing these Amaco glazes. They're pretty reliable. And as a little bonus, I've actually chosen some bowls with some shattering effect on them. I actually have 2 of them, to be honest with you. I like to test out things 2 times on the same clay body, just to make sure they come out the same way both times, because repetition with a glaze body and reliability is kind of the name of the game with the glaze. If I glaze these 2 the same glaze and they come out wildly different colors, well, I wouldn't suggest this glaze to you, but Amaco is pretty good about consistency. I also have this super secret potter glaze here. Made it myself. Homemade, not on the market.
Yeah,
that's
boy.
right. If you can guess what this glaze is before I put it on, you get 10 extra potter points. What do potter points do? Absolutely nothing, but you'll still get them.
What you know about me? What you know about me? What you know about me? What you know? They said my lip gloss is who? My lip gloss be poppin'. I'm standing at my locker and all the boys be stopping. Mac, L'Oreal, yep, cause I'm worth it. Oh, the way I put it on so perfect. Right, the corners of my mouth, so I work it when I walk down the hallway. They can't say nothing. Oh, my lips so luscious. The way I spice it up with the Mac brushes. L'Oreal got them watermelon crushes. That's probably the reason all these boys got crushes. Time for lunch, my lips still rock. Little mama melon with the hot pink top. Cherry, vanilla, flavors is a virtue. They loving lip gloss universal. The boys really like it, the girls don't speak. They rolling their eyes, they lip gloss cheap. It ain't my fault, but I can upgrade. Just show you how to use nice things with nice flavors. What you know about me? What you know about me? What you know about me? What you know? They said my lip gloss is who? My lip gloss be poppin'. I'm standing at my locker and all the boys be stopping. It's poppin'. I don't know. It's poppin'. Let's go. It's poppin'.
I glazed this in the secret sauce glaze I told you guys about earlier, but I want to separate this glaze from the Emerald Falls glaze that I have here, and I'm really tempted to just put wax resist over that because it is a technique, but at the same time, I'm kind of lazy and I don't want to take out my bottle, so I might actually do the extra work of glazing this legitly, which would cost more work now that I'm saying it out loud, so I'm just gonna wax resist it.
They can't say nothing. Oh, my lips so luscious. The way I spice it up with the Mac brushes. L'Oreal got them watermelon crushes. That's probably the reason all these boys got crushes. Time for lunch, my lips still rock. Little mama melon with the hot pink top. Cherry, vanilla, flavors is a virtue. They loving lip gloss universal. The boys really like it, the girls don't speak.
Okay, so let's go over everything that I glazed real quick before we put these in the kiln. I know, I be going overboard all the time, but that's what you guys get, Amaco. You gave me a whole bottle. I haven't even used the entire bottle of glaze, and look how many pieces I've glazed already. So those 2 bowls over there are porcelain, and they just have the glaze on them by themselves. These 2 over here are a darker clay, an amalgamation of B-mix and some obsidian clay that I kind of recycled myself. This right here is the sauce glaze. I put wax resist over it, and then I put Emerald Falls over the entire thing. So this way the Emerald Falls doesn't get in the way of the saucy glaze that I had made earlier. So you should see a clear separation. This should be a completely different glaze from this, but it does kind of marry up right here in the middle. So we're gonna see how that works out. These two bowls right here are also a porcelain glaze. The difference is that this is the sauce glaze on the inside, while the Emerald Falls is on the outside. There's no mixing of the glaze here. It's just these two by themselves. These two plates over here are specifically meant to mix in. So I happen to have a couple saucer plates left, and I kind of wanted to see what happened with the sauce glaze and the Emerald Falls mixed together on purpose. I purposely put them here so that I could see what happens when they play along the edges, but I also put it on the edges just in case it comes out real shiny on the inside and like messes up on the outside. It'll still be something nice that comes out of the kiln. So we're gonna put all these in the kiln tonight, and we're gonna see how they come out in about 2 days. Here's a cute picture of a cat, and I will see you in 2 days.
Cherry, vanilla, flavors is a virtue. They loving, lip gloss universal. The boys really like it, the girls don't speak
The next morning.
Let's take a look at our porcelain textiles first.
They use nice things with nice flavors. What you know about me? What you know about me? What you know about me? What you know? I said my lip gloss is who? My lip gloss be popping. I'm standing at my locker, and all the boys be stopping. It's popping. I don't know. It's popping.
These two textiles on porcelain clay came out pretty good. I will say I have a few problems with the actual glaze itself. Number one, this doesn't look anything like the bottle to me. Like, the bottle looks like it's a darker green, and it looks like it would have a small bit of texture on it, and both of my textiles did not come out like that at all. Both of them pretty much came out a darker version of like Celadon green, which is fine if you're looking for that color, but I bought the bottle for this color, and this is probably the first time that Amaco has given me a glaze that did not represent the color on the bottle, because usually they're pretty consistent with that. But this glaze, for some strange reason, maybe it was my own kiln load, but as we usually do, we do 2 of the same textile in the same place in the kiln to see if they will come out the same way every time, and these 2 came out exactly the same, even on the textures. I even used some shattered bowls to see if they would get some texture on the back, and they kind of started to get texture, but really that's most likely just me being able to see through to the clay body through the glaze, so that's most likely not because of the glaze itself.
Lip gloss universal. The boys really like it, the girls don't speak. They rolling their eyes, they lip gloss cheap. It ain't my fault, but I could upgrade. Just show ya.
And usually this wouldn't be much of an issue for me because whenever I get an Amaco glaze, it comes out exactly how it looks on the bottle. But this is like very light in comparison to the shade of green that looks on the bottle, you know? It's not bad, it's just if I wanted this, I would have bought a Celadon glaze, I guess. It kind of just looks like a darker Celadon. So let's move on to the other textiles because I have a sneaking suspicion that it might work a little bit better on the brown clay. But as far as the white porcelain textiles, these are both on Nara porcelain. It might just be the clay body that I'm using, but these pretty much just look like Celadon green, but darker, you know? Fair warning before I show you these bowls, I had some tester bowls lying around, but they're also defect bowls. So some of these bowls have a little bit of bloating because they're such dark clay that they bloat sometimes because the impurities don't come out in the bisque. But I also put them on super dark clay, and it doesn't, I mean, I do understand that it doesn't look that great because of the bloating, but if you look down here where it got the most glaze and the most color, this is what I wanted. This looks better than the Celadon with extra steps glaze that I got before on the white textiles. If I had this glaze, oh, I would love this on white clay. But instead, I had to use a super dark clay body to get it, and I imagine it would work on straight brown or red stone clay. It would work fantastic. I'm clearly not going to keep these 2, but as far as the glaze goes, it came out pretty good, honestly. I would love this color on natural white or porcelain clay.
Rolling their eyes, they lip gloss cheap. It ain't my fault, but I could upgrade. Just show ya how to use nice things with nice flavors. What you know about me?
I have a really bad habit of using bowls that I know are going to fail or that already have defects on them as testers, but in my mind it's okay because they're testers. It's just sometimes I get lucky and I'm like, well, I guess I could put these in the store because these look pretty good still. Some person might really love this color, but these, no. These things were dead from the get-go. So these are gonna go in the yeet pile. Yeet! These two bowls will probably just intensify the point that I was making with the porcelain clay bodies. These two bowls are also made out of the porcelain clay body, Nara's porcelain, but the same exact thing happened on those bowls that happened on these bowls here. What I'm seeing on the bottle here is like this dark emerald kind of clover dark grass color of a glaze, Emerald Falls, right? But what I'm getting on the bowls is not that. The closest thing I got to what I'm seeing on the bottle here is the inside texture right here of this little lip. Usually I'll put a little bit of something there so it can catch some texture and kind of play inside the textures to see what happens when I test the stuff. But it kind of just like, it did the thing I wanted it to do in the texture, but nowhere else. I wouldn't grab this and go like, oh, this is gonna come out the color it says on the bottle. There's none of my 4, 5, 6 testers came out the way it says on the bottle. I will say that this glaze plays along with my other glazes pretty well. I've been using this experimental crystal glaze on a lot of my stuff recently. Oh, I ruined the surprise. Also, as a side note, for those of you who guessed the experimental glaze was a crystal glaze I've been working on, you were correct. Congratulations, you get 5 extra powder points, which are, they're not worth anything, but like, you know, you sleep a little better at night. I do enjoy that this glaze plays a little bit better with a lot of my other glazes. I did do one more test style after this, and it looks pretty good. Like, and I slathered it on. Like, I took this glaze to its limits. I really dipped it in there and made sure, like, okay, if I'm not gonna get results by glazing them the normal way that I usually glaze them, I'm just gonna pour it, I'm just gonna go for gold. And that test style is a big surprise, but as far as combining itself with this glaze that I've been experimenting with, it combined pretty well. I would say that these are pretty good bowls. I feel like I'm trying to show you guys like the rim right here so it combines with the experimental glaze, but half of you are probably like, ooh, crystals in the middle. This one pretty much came out the same as well. The glaze plays really well with other glazes. That's one thing I've always liked about Amaco. But as far as the backside goes, it's the same thing I've been complaining about this entire episode. None of these 3 colors, like I made it thick here, normal here, and then I put texture here to let it kind of play and see what it does inside of texture. None of this looks like anything close to the color on the bottle to me. I know it's green, and as a guy, I'm like, green is green, whatever, you know, oh, it's emerald green, but also, like, in the art world, getting the correct shade of color is kind of a big one, especially when you're making glazes or playing with glazes, and these two don't really look similar to me. Comment down below and tell me if I'm the crazy one. Like, no, Donte, you're colorblind. Those look completely the same. But to me, at this moment, these do not look like the same color at all. Now, these are what I was looking for. This is what I wanted. These two came out fantastic. Even without the experimental crystal glaze in the middle, these two came out the best out of all the test styles. And this is like a garbage clay that I just kind of like put together and made a flat disc to test these glazes on specifically, and they came out so good.
Let's go. What you know about me? What you know about me? What you know about me? What you know? They said my lip gloss is who? My lip gloss be popping. I'm standing at my locker and all the boys be stopping. Mac, L'Oreal, yep, cause I'm worth it. Oh, the way I put it on so perfect. Wipe the corners of my mouth so I work it when I walk.
Here's the thing. Usually whenever I get a bottle of glaze and I test it for you on these glaze reviews, I will take a couple of white clay, a couple of brown clay, a couple of things to see if they mix with some glazes I'm playing with at the moment, and then I'll always throw like a Hail Mary in there, just like a, let's see what happens if I just like really go for gold, right? And they almost always come out ruined, except for this one time where I used a clay that I don't even remember what I mixed it with. This is probably redstone and porcelain mixed together, and then I just like kind of doused my experimental glaze on there and then put this glaze, Emerald Falls, on there, and it came out so good. I might keep these. No, I can't keep keeping my stuff. I have to put them in the online store sometimes. I can't just like have my own set of, I can't Kanye myself. Like, oh, I only listen to my own music. Like, I gotta put these out in the world. I'm also kind of happy about this because for once in this glaze's test, it came out at least a little bit close to the color that I wanted. Granted, it's still a little bit lighter than I thought it would be, but still, like, this is the texture. that I wanted, and this was the melt that I wanted. And even on the edges where it's not as thick, this is what I was looking for. I was looking for a dark green that breaks white, but instead on a high majority of the test styles on the bowls, I got a white that breaks dark green if you really slather it on there. And these two I just filled up with this glaze. This is the only way I can get it to work, is to spend like 1/8 of the bottle just kind of slathering it on there. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. I know that this one was kind of a bust. Almost every single Amaco glaze I've ever tested has been fantastic. Except for this one is like, you might as well just buy you a Celadon glaze so you get more consistency with the clear green that you're getting. But this is, like I said it before, and I'll say it again, this is basically a darker version of Celadon in my mind. And the only way to get a different texture out of it is to straight gobble it on, gobble's not a word, Donte. Really slather it on a product. And the only reason I did it here is because it's not gonna drip. Like, where would it go? You know what I mean? This is just, I did this one on this plate because I can do this one without worry about ruining my kiln shelves. I give Emerald Falls an Earth Nation rating of 6 out of 10. Not because I don't like the glaze, it looks like a fantastic glaze, but because it's one of my biggest pet peeves to get a bottle of glaze that doesn't look anything like the bottle or the picture on the bottle at all. And then after I test it on multiple clay bodies in a Cone 6 electric kiln, you know what I mean? Like, I would get it if like one bowl came out this way and another bowl came out like the test style on the bottle. But instead, we have like 4 different bowls that all came out like this in different areas of the kiln, 2 of them in the same area and 2 of them on the bottom of the kiln. These are on the top, so I wanted some variation in heat. But it definitely has potential if you understand how to use the glaze. Of course, that goes with all glazes. I just think the viability of a glaze is the ability for a beginner to pick it up and just glaze their stuff, and it comes out how it says it'll come out on the bottle with the test style. For me, that's the mark of, okay, is it a good glaze? It works how it's intended. They told you how it's gonna look, and it looks exactly how it's going to. You got what you paid for. But this one is like, you kinda got what you paid for. You got green, you wanted green, didn't you? You got green, yeah, be happy you got green. I feel so bad because I feel like this is the first time I've ever reviewed a glaze that I'm like, this is below 7, and usually Amaco glazes are always above at least a 7 in rating as far as my mind goes. But also, I don't feel as bad as if I would have lied to my community. You know what I mean? I'd much rather tell you guys the truth and disappoint Amaco than I would lie to you and compromise the trust I have in between you and I. But keep in mind, this is just my one experiment on multiple different clay bodies with this one glaze. Somebody might put it in a different kiln load and come out exactly with this color. If you've gotten this color before from this glaze, put it down in the comments below. I would love to hear your experience with this, because you do and should remember that this is just my experience with this glaze. But thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic day. If you'd like to see any of my artwork, the links are always down below for your beautiful Potter eyes to see. I know you guys want to see more of this and more of that crystal glaze I developed, so I will post them on Instagram fairly soon for your beautiful eyes. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you, Dirty Potters, next week.
So luscious, the way I spice it up with the matte brushes. L'Oreal got them watermelon crushes. That's probably the reason all these boys got crushes. Time for lunch, my lips still rock.
I have to wait for the truck again. Why are there so many trucks that come down the street at this time of day? What the flip?